going to show you all my tools, equipment, and supplies that I use to build and maintain my FPV quadcopter. Alright, so first off I'll do a pan of my workbench. Okay, and I'll show you some of the items that I specifically use them for. So this is a 2mm hex bit, and most of the frames have these screws on them with a 2mm screw head on them. So that's what I use that for. Some of the frames have nuts on the bottom, and so you'll need a 5mm hex driver for that. Screwdriver, wire strippers. These shears really handy whenever you do a direct solder of some wires to your flight controller or your power distribution board. You're going to end up with a little tip of the wire on the side here, and you want to clip that off. Pliers, scissors, tape. So this is just regular electrical tape, and this is double-sided tape. This is really important whenever you mount the speed controller on your arm. You're going to put that tape right underneath your speed controller and then mount it to your arm. Okay. This type of tape is really important, not to get the one that's white, because the white one falls apart when you try and peel it. This one stays together. Alright, so I'm going to move over to the side here a little bit. So I have my Lipo Charger right here. This one is capable of 7 amps. For just a normal rate charging, you're going to use about 1.3 amps, because if you have a battery like this that's 13 milliamp hours, you're going to charge it at a 1-to-1 rate, so 1.3 amps for the 13 milliamp hour battery. You could charge it faster if you want. Okay, I also have this parallel charging board. So this is really cool and important, because then this allows you to charge more than one battery at a time. Obviously you can see all the plugs here, so I could actually charge 6 batteries at the same time. Okay, normally when you're out flying, you're going to want a couple batteries at least to have a decent time out. And then let's go over here to some of the soldering equipment. So I have a 0.6mm rosin core solder. I have this wick in case I need to desolder some items. I have the soldering paste, which is really helpful whenever you're trying to tin the end of a wire. You've got this paste that really cleans up the contacts and helps that solder to flow throughout the item that you're trying to put solder on. This is also really cool to have. I use this whenever I need to connect 2 items together. So, for example, if I'm wiring the motors to the ESC, this is a great way to put the ESC and the motor wires on here, and it'll hold those in position, and then you don't have to have something else to hold it in place. This is really convenient to hold everything together. Alright, I've got my soldering iron. This is 65 watts, and I found this to be suitable. I actually use a larger tip like this, and this allows me to do large joints like the battery connection, which has a larger gauge wire, and even small connections like on the flight controller and the power distribution board. I could just use the very end of the tip there for a small point soldering job. Okay, you do have this thing here that helps clean the tip of your soldering iron. And then down here, here's one of my quads, And so you'll want at least 2 batteries. I have got 3, and 3 seems to be fine for just a short outing. And then I do have these battery straps here. You want to have a couple of those. I have a RunCam 2 setup for my video, and then of course I would mount the battery right here. Okay. As far as having some spares, you're going to go through some propellers, so always have some spares. You're also going to want some spare motors. So I've got both clockwise and counterclockwise motors. So in addition to your set of 4 to run your quad, you want to have one of each of these in case one of your motors does and will burn out. Okay. I also have this here. This is a battery meter, and it also happens to have an alarm. So it's a good way to check your voltage on your batteries. This one's fully charged. It'll cycle through each of the voltage levels on each cell. Okay. All right, I'm going to move over here to the left. And so zip ties. I've got 4-inch zip ties and 8-inch zip ties. And these work just fine for kind of what you can see here. This is just kind of basic here for my camera. That's not ideal, but there's other items that I use for holding up the antenna here. So I use a 4-inch. The antennas here, these are actually zip ties, and these are the 8-inch zip ties. Got heat shrink. So have a nice little selection of heat shrink dimensions, lengths. All right, plastic standoffs and screws. Okay, this is for your flight controller power distribution board, and obviously they're made out of plastic, so it keeps from short. And then over to the left here, I've got 12 gauge silicone wire, 14 gauge, and 20 gauge wire, and that seems to be kind of a good selection of wires. I've got my XT60 connectors with the shrink wrap. I've got some JST connectors. Sometimes I don't like to do a direct solder. I like to be able to change out components quickly, so I'll just use these. I also use these servo wires here. Alright, here's some pin headers. This is a 3-pin right angle pin header. Okay. This one is a 3-pin straight pin header. And this is a single pin header straight. And then I have some buzzers here. Okay, buzzers are used, you can switch that on your quad when you need to try and locate it. Heat gun. Alright, this is really important to not only just mount certain things on there that you might want, but really to coat the connections that you have whenever you do a direct solder of a wire to your flight controller or your power distribution board. By giving a little bit of glue right where it connects, it makes that area very durable. Okay, and so you're going to find that when you're working on the quad, it's going to flex, and eventually the wire part is going to break off if you don't hold that wire in position with the heat gun. And then have this here. This is what I use to shrink the shrink wrap. So I think that's pretty much it. Actually, here's a couple other things here you do need. One is a mini USB cord, and I use this to hook up my Taranis radio to the computer. So here's my Taranis radio here, and on the back there's a connector right here which you plug this mini USB connector to it and then up to your computer. And then the micro USB connector. Okay, so this micro connector in here plugs into your flight controller board like that, okay, and then to your computer. So I believe that is it now, basically. So any questions about some of the supplies or equipment that I use here, let me know. I didn't quite cover everything here, but hopefully just seeing some of these items on the video will be helpful, and I will have a pretty good description of all the parts that I've used in the description of this video. Thanks, guys.